All right, here we are live. We never fixed up the title. It is episode 4 of Steven and Rex Paid for Play College Basketball Tuesday Night Talk. We got some big games that are going to be tipping off soon. But as usual, the show is on your Daily Bread Media Network and also on the Twitter page as well. On our YouTube page, that's where our Pay for Play channel is. That's our Saturday morning show, and we introduced the Tuesday night concept into it as well. We are going to start off with Steven's gambling picks for the night, and then we're going to dabble in and jump through the main topics, the biggest things that we're currently seeing in the college basketball at December 7th. So, Steven, I had the week off last week. You ran the show without me. How you doing? What is up?
I tried to give it a shot, but we are essentially on tilt today. Not from the gambling perspective. We are responsible gamblers here, but just in general, a little on tilt today. Ready for some hot takes, and according to what I've seen from some other cappers that I respect, I have, I guess, some hot takes just on my plays in general. And, I guess I could just get right into them now. And my first one starts in my first four all start in about 25 minutes. My first pick is going against the grain of what I heard was like 80% of the public money. I'm on Tennessee -4. I think outside of Terrence Shannon Jr., Tennessee should have the next three best players. I think Brandon Huntley Hatfield should have a good game. Kennedy Chandler, as long as he doesn't get himself in foul trouble, will usually have a pretty big impact in the game, whether it's passing or scoring. And then I know he's been bad to start the year, but I also think he shows up well in big games. And that starts today. I think John Fulkerson I think he's going to have a good game. I think Tennessee wins kind of going away. I like UMass money line. I think their shooting will just end up being a little too much for Northeastern. UMass has played a lot better than I thought they would without their big man from last year who went to Texas. I like UMass. I'm on Furman -1.5. This is a little bit more of a blind play for me. I really think Furman is just that good. And if I can get them at anything less than like -5 against a team that's not, say, from like the A10 or a Belmont or another one of those really good small schools, I'll take Furman every time. Temple's been kind of iffy to me, but I hate Vanderbilt's offense outside of Scottie Pippen Jr. So for one of the first times in my life, we don't usually hear it on the show, I'm on Temple +8.5. Not even the money line.
The Owls tonight.
And then my favorite, or probably everybody's favorite team from about 7 years ago, Florida Gulf Coast -4.5. They've already played 10 games this year, and Florida A&M they're not that good. They've never really been that good. I think Florida Gulf Coast is getting back to being really good. And since this isn't that long of a drive for them staying in state, I like Florida Gulf Coast -4.5. That's everything I got today.
So your Tennessee pick, can't really say I 100% agree with that one. Just laying points in that matchup seems to be tough, but Tennessee does have the horses to pull this one away, especially if Texas Tech stays undisciplined and commits the fouls. That's one where I would probably be on the opposing side there. You're at the Furman versus Winthrop. That line just makes no sense whatsoever to me because Furman should be laying a lot more points. The fact that Winthrop is that small of dogs is boy, oh boy. And then Vanderbilt, I mean, you can never trust Vandy, so I'll always be taking the points there. Wouldn't be lying with them. The under almost seems a little bit safer there, but I'm not rushing to bet an under in that game.
Yeah. I mean that game against VCU that Vanderbilt had, I'm never gonna be able to forget that game, and I'll never be able to take Vanderbilt as a favorite again the rest of the year after seeing that they can have games where they only put up 35 points.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. But we saw Arizona State do the same thing, barely put up anything in their first conference game and then went outright in their second one. It's these early season funks. You get the kids that are probably looking forward to the winter break once they get that like maybe week off. You have teams going into conference play, out of conference play. I'm just happy we have fans in the stadium. So you'll get these dull and low moments. It's college basketball. It's a 30-game season. These kids are not going to be checked in. So that's why you got to pick your spots. And Steven, I think you have a few good ones there. I'm just tweeting out our YouTube link right now. So if you're on Twitter, we'll be monitoring the comments, shouting you guys out. But if you want to be on YouTube like Rory and Who You to get into the comments, drop some plays, tell Steven or I'm wrong on some of the analysis we're going to give, you can do that as well because we need to get Steven's picks out to start early. We'll run through them a little bit later if any case anyone joins again for the place I haven't started or if you want to hop on it live. But what we have on the docket today is teams that we think should be in the top 25 that got left out. We got your Power Five overachieving and underachieving teams, and then Steven isn't happy with one as well. And we got to talk to Big East versus the Big 12. We're halfway through that conference series head-to-head matchups that they're doing, and UConn's playing. So that's the way Steven had to sneak in some talk about the Huskies, who didn't look too convincing recently, but you're 7-1, so it is what it is, right? We'll save that for later. He's muted, so that's probably a good thing. We can't get into the Huskies talk early. So there is 3 teams that I think have a right or a claim to say they could potentially be ranked, but the committee has not. And especially since we're going into a Power 5 hungry portion of the show, there's a few mid-majors that aren't getting the love that they are due. And I think come next week, these 2 mid majors could potentially find themselves ranked. And the first one we're going to start off with is the Dons of San Francisco. They're currently sitting at 9-0 on the season. Big win against UAB and Nevada. Other than that, not too many big resume wins, but they have a Fresno State coming up this tomorrow night, and then they have Grand Canyon on Saturday into Arizona State on Sunday. So they got a packed schedule for this week. You can be looking at the Dons because they're going to be laying points in all 3 of them. So come the weekend and come Monday morning, they should be sitting at 12-0. Currently, it's hard to say who I would knock San Francisco out just because the strength of the wins aren't there. But if they can get through this week unscathed, there's some teams that would drop out. But I'll get into the second team here who I think I have a greater claim to knock out one of these teams. What do you think about the Dons? Do they deserve their due or is it too early for them?
I mean, I think they should be in. Right now, they look like the second best team in the WCC. I mean, sure, BYU has their pretty good wins already. They beat San Diego State, even though San Diego State hasn't looked like themselves to start the year. And they also beat Oregon, but we've seen how bad Oregon's offense is against like above average teams. I mean, I would
Because
put
it's
San
too hard to
Francisco.
pick on the team because I was going to say Florida was one of my teams that I would knock out to put San Francisco and definitely knock out to put the other team. But them losing last night just makes it seem like it's a little too easy there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying it just I guess I'm taking the extra step past you because that one loss for BYU is more than enough for me to say they already dropped 12 spots. They should have dropped at least 14 and been out because it's an in-state game, but BYU's only real rivals in Utah should be Utah and Utah State. I don't think under any circumstances Utah Valley State should come in and beat BYU, even though it
Wasn't
was a
Utah
road
Valley
game for
State home
BYU.
because they rushed the court?
I mean, that was fun too. Once I saw that game was close, I was tuned in for all of overtime and the last 5 minutes. But I mean,
So you got to get your UConn talk in here. This is the team that should be the most pissed off that they're not ranked yet, because I don't know what possibly more this squad has to do. I mean, they have a good game coming up on Saturday on a neutral court against Mississippi State. But when you have wins, especially the recent one against St. Mary's, who's like everyone's favorite darling as of right now, wins against Creighton and Oral Roberts as well, and you're also sitting undefeated at 9-0. The combination of Roddy and Stevens is just going way too better. We were a season early last year picking them. We just rocked with it this offseason because I've jumped the Boise ship. Colorado State should be in there over LSU. Yes, sorry, Sam, if you're watching this. I can't say Ohio State because they took down Duke, but other than that, they are not convincing whatsoever. So that's where solely having that Duke win is the sole thing keeping them in there. And then Michigan State and Auburn, I can argue that I think Colorado State should be in over them. Sure, they've had their tougher schedule so far, but one team sitting at 9-0 and those other two as L's. Colorado State, I'm going to ride them till the end of the season. They should have been ranked and are screwed that they aren't.
Yeah, Colorado State. I mean, they are the first team out, so I mean, the committee definitely still likes them a little bit, but this early in the year where college basketball is still competing with college football, you want the big name Power 5 teams in the top 25 if people are only looking at the top 25. So I guess that's why I can see LSU at 8-0 sneaks in one spot ahead of Colorado State, who's 9-0. But that's just me thinking
then
that
throw out
NCAA
the
only
other
wants
two
the money.
teams that I listed with losses because I'm not trying to hate on this LSU side. I think them being at 25 is honestly a little low. They're number 2 in the net. So are they going to be last year's Colgate? That just right up there. Then the last team that I think should also be ranked as well, and this is a power school. If you're going to give Iowa State, where they 18th overall because they're undefeated, and that's Xavier's only loss, when they have wins over Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and Oklahoma State, sure, those last two aren't ranked, but the win over the team that beat the number one in-state rivalry game, it is what it is. You can give that one, but Xavier should be probably the most pissed off team that they're not ranked this week out of all the schools in the country.
Yeah, this point could be used against me as well, but I don't think the committee is going to properly rate Xavier until they're at full strength with Zach Fremantle back. I think it could have gone either way. They could have either overrated them, saying, look at these wins they got without one of their best players, or they could underrate them as just say, we still want to wait and see. Like Xavier's had a bunch of years where they're good early and then they fall off late. I don't think the committee would want to just immediately jump them up super high if they end up falling apart in Big East play again.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think Xavier, even though I'm not sold on their steal, what they've done so far and the results early in the season, I have to give them the credit that they're due there. And we're going to stick into Xavier because that win over Oklahoma State made the conference head-to-head matchup in the Big East versus the Big 12 tied. So we had 4 games completed already. We got 6 remaining. Steven and I are going to make a pick of which conference we think is going to pull it out. These games will run all the way until the 18th, so you kind of got to stick with us here. But there's some big matchups that are worth discussing. Butler versus OU tonight. OU should roll them. We're going to talk about Oklahoma a little bit later, so we'll save that game for there. But the 2 games tomorrow where your betting lines are about to be out, we can spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes on these two, say who we're going to pick a winner at. And I'm just teeing you up, Steven, because you're traveling to Morgantown tomorrow. Not you personally, but your squad is. Huskies at WVU. I haven't seen the line out yet, but let me pull up Ken Palm real quick because we all know the lines will open within 2 points of whatever his analytics mind
Yep.
says. So on 12-8,
I have an initial line
Connecticut
here
as a
too.
1-point favorite. So you might open as favorites in Morgantown.
Wait, Ken Palm has UConn opening as a 1-point favorite?
Yep.
The opening line spread I'm seeing here is West Virginia as a 1-point favorite.
All right. So right where he said, right within a point of it. Let's hear it. Break down this matchup for me real quick.
I'll be honest, I'm not excited for tomorrow. If I'm being honest, we like Sonogo's out with a chest injury. Tyrese Martin's out with a wrist injury. You saw it in their last game. They had to give Samson Johnson and Rasul Diggins some more minutes. And against a lot of teams, I wouldn't necessarily be worried about that. But against Press Virginia, where you have to play 3 freshmen in Jordan Hawkins, Rasul Diggins, Samson Johnson, it's going to be tough for them to beat the press. I think this is a game where if the seniors shine and the seniors just play a lot of minutes and it's RJ Cole, a Cook, Tyler Polley, Isaiah Whaley, I think they can out physical West Virginia still. But if they have to go too deep down the bench, West Virginia could definitely win. And I wouldn't even really count that as a bad loss because I still think West Virginia is pretty good. And we're not even really that close to full strength. So I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to be having heart attacks throughout the game. I am not excited to watch the game.
And in this game, which Rory shouted out, old school Big East matchup, I was expecting West Virginia just to have a complete dominance and just size over you guys. But West Virginia really doesn't have that big body go-to guy since Oscar transferred out, and they really haven't replaced him so far this season. You have Cortell as the freshman who still to be determined. You kind of been rolling with Paulie there, but is he truly a big man? Who knows? So that's where who's going to be matching up on Taz for you guys? That's your biggest question, and that's the biggest matchup of the game. It's easy to say trying to stop Taz Sherman's going to win you the game, but when his usage and that offensive productivity for this West Virginia side this year, it's kind of going to be who can slow down Taz.
That's actually something I liked, and it's something RJ Cole showed he has as part of his game that you didn't really see as much at Howard because we had Book Night there last year. RJ Cole was the guy who would lock up other teams' number 1 guards. Like you saw it against Zagorowski in UConn's first game against Creighton. He just absolutely shut him down. Like when he needs to, he can lock up a guard, and then the athletes on the rest of the court will just guard the interior just off athleticism. Because you've seen it time and time again this year. Even though he hasn't been scoring that much, Andre Jackson has been, like, just his athletic ability has caused so many blocks that you think he couldn't get to, that not having the 7-footer that we're going to have next year, it doesn't really hurt as much when Isaiah Whaley just blocks a ton of shots a game. A Cook has insanely long arms, just blocks a ton of shots, and so does Andre Jackson. Like, you don't need the 6'11" guy when you got 2 guys with like 40-inch verts that'll get up and block anything anyway.
So, are you confident that UConn wins tomorrow or no?
I'm about 60% confident that UConn wins tomorrow.
So, are we doing a friendly head-to-head wager on this one then? No money.
Yeah, we can
friendly
do
head-to-head wager.
We can do a friendly head-to-head wager, and if UConn loses, I'll do what all of UConn Twitter was doing last year. And if anybody from UConn Twitter is watching, you'll understand. But the hot sauce shots from last year will be back if UConn loses.
All right, I'll do one, even though it's not West Virginia, because I really don't feel like singing Country Roads. But Taz, in his 9 games so far this year, he's only had 1 where he has less than 17 points. So Clemson did lock him up, which does show it is possible because he has 4 games where he's dropped 20 plus, and he's just been the cog of that offense. So Steven and I will have a hot sauce challenge for West Virginia versus UConn tomorrow. So let's go Nears and drink some beers.
That's the only part of West Virginia I agree with. Drinking beers. That's about it. Also,
any thoughts on the other game tomorrow? I know we spent a little bit long on that one, but essentially, go for it.
Yeah, this game, I'm just gonna be real quick about it. I don't like Kansas State in that spot. I don't know. I think Shaka's been doing a good job, and so I think Shaka's been doing a good job. And Kansas State, I'm not ready to trust them, even though they got one of my guys on their team. But Kansas State being 3.5-point favorites right now seems like a very incorrect line to me. I will be on Marquette.
Yep. And the biggest part of why I wanted to talk this game and why I think Marquette is also the right side here, and you kind of point to it towards Shaka, losing by 13 to Wisconsin, where that's why he came to Marquette. He wants the Wisconsin job. He's going to try to start winning over the Marquette recruiting, and losing by 13. I feel bad for Kansas State tomorrow because I'm going to take Marquette outright most likely on Daily Bread tomorrow. Shaka is going to get the guys up for this spot. That's the game where he's going to be the most pissed off and where his team hasn't shown up. They shown up against Illinois. They showed up against West Virginia. Got spanked by Bonnies, but that happens to you sometimes. I mean, I always respect them, but Shaka never really did too great at Texas whatsoever. He got the talent in there, but just couldn't coach it up. It was just too big of a program and other things there. I still just think Marquette goes into Kansas State and wins tomorrow. Your biggest matchup remaining in the Big East versus the Big 12 is you got Villanova at Baylor on December 12th. You got Texas at Seton Hall on December 9th. And then TCU at Georgetown wraps you up on December 18th. So 4 games there. Do you think I think the Big 12 wins it? How about you?
Well, I'm trying to think what's it at now. It's 3-1 Big East or it's 2-2?
No, it's 2-2.
2-2. I still think, even though I think Villanova loses, so that's 3.
Oklahoma wins tonight, which is 4.
And then Texas wins, which is 5.
Yeah, that's kind of where they have it. They just need one more of the rest of Marquette, West Virginia, or TCU to pull one out. So that's why I got to go with the Big 12 here.
I don't think TCU does it. I don't think Kansas State does it. So it really all comes back down to the bet game.
The hot sauce.
It comes down to West Virginia.
All right, let's go. So you're going with the push.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, hey, it's like when you're betting something on like a 3-way line. I'm betting for the tie.
All right, you can bet for the tie. I'm gonna have some cojones and pick a winner here. Let's get into underachieving Power 5 teams. So, Steven, we have to go much quicker. We can't have a UConn tangent. So, good thing they're not under overachieving. But what's one Power 5 squad that you're disappointed in so far this season? And can they save it so far, or are they done and dusted?
Let's see. Wait. Let's see. An underachieving team, I would probably it's got to be one of the teams from the Pac-12. It's either Arizona State or it's Oregon. I think people weren't as sold on Arizona State, but they had the talent. I think Oregon probably finishes 6th or 7th in the Pac-12 this year, so I'm going to go with Oregon.
Damn. Yeah, that loss last night, it's hard to kind of argue against Oregon being one of the more underachieving sides so far this season. I mean, the Big 12, you really can't pick a team, which is the wildest part, was when we tried to nail one for each conference. That was your toughest one to actually assign an underachieving side to. Do you got a second team, or do I have to give out one now?
You know what? I think I think it's Michigan as
There it
well.
is. I didn't want to be the one who said it.
I can't see any way that, like, because all the teams that Michigan lost to, I think they probably should have beat. And if you already got 3 losses against teams you shouldn't lose to, then what's going to happen in games against teams that are even with you or you should lose to? Like, this is a team for me that I think should probably end up more on the 5 or 6 line instead of what everybody was hyping them up to be when they had like the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class saying, back to the Final Four, Juwan Howard's back, we're this fucking team now. Like, no, you aren't. You're still Michigan. Just admit that you're back to being a football school now that you beat Ohio State one time.
That's been the best thing because it's kind of skated under the rug the whole time. I mean, Seton Hall, Arizona, and UNC aren't the worst losses. The UNC loss was, I think, probably the most predictable one. The Seton Hall one hurt the most, and the Arizona one was kind of like the most what the fuck. But mine, of all the schools, and I'm going to the game on Thursday night because if number 1 Purdue is going into the rack, I'm going to my first Rutgers game. And this is by far my most disappointing Power 5 team because, sure, you lost your center. It happens. But when you got Harper Jr. and Baker back, and yeah, they haven't been in every single game so far, losing to DePaul, I'll like shrug that one off. But you can't lose to Lafayette at the crib. You can't lose to UMass. And then losing to Illinois here or there, but the loss at the crib to Lafayette, putting up 51 points at the rack, that's what's saying tomorrow's game against Purdue is going to be a 20-point spanking, and everyone's going to leave pretty early there. Could be their turnaround spot to keep it close. I mean, hard as nails, but it's tough to go anywhere else other than Arizona State to Rutgers. Arizona State saved theirs, so they were going to be my choice, so it has to go to Rutgers. Sorry to our main man, Goose, but I'll finally get to crush a beer with him tomorrow.
Yeah, Rutgers it's been tough sledding for them, but of course, after all those games they lose to teams that, for the most part, they shouldn't be losing to this year. The one time I go against them, Clemson decides to be even more underachieving than Rutgers on that day, because why not?
Clemson is just the Rutgers of it, but we don't have to get into that terrible comparison here. Let's get into teams that are overachieving and can they keep it up. We already touched on one of them, but we didn't talk about them for long for a reason. Iowa State. Steven, talk to me about the Clunes and can they keep up this? I don't know. Why were they so underrated at the beginning of the season, or what's been the big jump that's made them get to ranked where no one thought they had a chance for the Big 12 title?
Well, they were underrated to start the year because 2 wins last year. That's really all you need to say. Like, how high can you expect a team to be when they had 2 wins the year before? And I think now they've completely flipped the script and become way overrated because Memphis is not the team everybody wanted to make them out to be. Xavier's not at full health. Oregon State was way overrated to start the year. Like, that was a team that was kind of lucky to get in the tournament and even luckier to make a run. Like, they are not that team. And even beating Creighton lost, I think, all 5 starters from last year. Like, sure, their recruits are good, but just having good freshman recruits, like, they don't have Duke or Kentucky recruits that can come in and still win that game anyway. They have recruits that'll be good in a couple of years. So I think Iowa State has beaten teams that people want to think are good, but really aren't that good. And now Iowa State's overrated. And I think, well, it's a little bit of a revenge spot on Thursday, but
yeah, I was about to say the Cyhawk game. I was about to say, are you going to be laying it with Iowa?
Yeah, so I think the revenge spot for Iowa State could keep it close, but I also at the same time think Iowa just rolls them and gives them their first loss on Thursday.
So I'm not too sold yet on them being complete overachievers from the sole fact that Steve from whatever the fuck that bum's name was. I think that was the biggest reason that ran Iowa State into the ground. I think it's simple as that. TJ Olsenberg came, realized UNLV was not the spot for him, and got out of that as quickly as he could, because when he was at the summit with South Dakota State, sure, it's easy to recruit there and to dominate the summit, but making a little bit of a name for himself, won two big non-con games so far. Yeah, you can give them 3 with Creighton. If they can take down Iowa, I can't really say they're overachievers because they're sailing into the new year, hosting Baylor, double digits and now. That game on Thursday is must-watch TV because I think the Cyclones might get it just because the sole fact that they're at home. And last night, Iowa didn't look too convincing against Illinois.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a couple more listed, but there's really only one more I want to talk about. And it's a team that I thought could have been in that top 25 conversation as well. I think Providence has been overachieving, but I don't really think it's as much of a fluke as people think. And this is coming from somebody who naturally hates Providence anyway. Like, I do not want to give them credit, but beating Rhode Island, not a bad win. Beating Northwestern, not a bad win. The Wisconsin win looks a lot better, and the Texas Tech win looks good right now. If Texas Tech's receiving votes and Providence isn't, but Providence has a better record and the head-to-head win over them, I mean, I don't see how Providence isn't in that 28 to 32 range, even if they're not in the top 25. But what Providence does have that I don't think Iowa State has is Providence has a dominant force. Like, Nate Watson can come in and dominate any team he plays against. So, like, I got to give them their overachieving credit, but I think them overachieving is more sustainable than Iowa State overachieving so far.
And you got a big game on December 18th to see how overachieving they are. I give them big credits for the Texas Tech and the Wisconsin win. Those are tough to come by. I think the committee is just seeing that 40-point egg that they put up against UVA. And I think that's the sole part that's keeping them out. But, I mean, even when Nate Watson had one of the worst games of his career, they still defended the home court. So, got to give Providence their respect. I do think they should have been considered to be ranked. I don't know if they potentially crack it, though. My team that I think is completely overachieving and is big frauds is Minnesota. Ben Johnson's got the program, it looks to be turned around because they're winning outside of the barn, and they're winning 2 games outside of the barn that last year's team probably would have dropped an egg to, and that's at Mississippi State and at Pittsburgh. Well, they're hosting Michigan and going at the Michigan State this week. Not the nicest welcome to conference play that they have. I think they might get smacked down pretty quickly this week, brought back to earth, clean up their next 3 games because they got Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, Green Bay, and Alcorn State. And then they get into the heart of conference play, where I think by the end of the season, this team will be looking at close to 500. So they're currently sitting at 7-0. I'm thinking they end their year at 15-15 because they have 30 games scheduled. So that's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Minnesota at all. They are bringing in essentially an entirely new team. Like, I don't know anybody that's on the team this year that was also on the team last year.
They weren't.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think you're right with their last 3 games of December. They'll probably win all those. But I absolutely am going to love fading them on Wednesday and Saturday against Michigan State and Michigan, because I think these lines are going to be a lot closer than they should be. And I think they're just going to get run out of their own building by Michigan State, and Michigan's going to run them back to Minnesota on Saturday, even though I think Michigan is also a little bit fraudulent. They're not that fraudulent.
Since you had the line, is the Michigan State Minnesota line available for tomorrow in your book yet?
No, not yet.
I was about to say, I'm probably seeing Michigan State laying 3.5 to -4 at open. So that's kind of where I want to do it both games with you as well. But if I had to pick, I hope Michigan State wins by like 4 or 5 right by the number tomorrow. So then the Michigan game opens under single digits, because Michigan could be -13.5 come Saturday. And that's just going to be something I don't want much part of it.
Yeah, I was honestly thinking Michigan State would have been closer to like 7-point. Like, let's go back to football spreads, almost like a touchdown favorite tomorrow. And if you think, or if it looks like it's opening at like 3.5 or 4, I will hammer Michigan State with this would be my irresponsible gambling.
It's open 5.5.
5.5. That will be me irresponsibly gambling all of the funds on Michigan State tomorrow.
5.5 is currently sitting at total 133.
Easy Spartans.
Is there any other overachieving team you want to get into?
No one that seems like that of note. Like, sure, you can talk about Wisconsin, but Wisconsin doesn't have the offense to match up with enough of these teams in the Big Ten for me to be like, oh no, they can sustain this. Like, they will not sustain this.
I think mine, and it's going to continue, so that's why I kind of can't call them it, because their next 1, 2, 3, 4 games are going to be favored by double digits, is going to be USC. They just haven't played anybody. It's just as simple as that, in my opinion. They're currently still undefeated. They're ranked. They're sitting there at 8-0. Their toughest game so far in the season is Washington State. Second toughest is Utah. They play Oklahoma State, and they really don't play anyone, so UCLA will be their barometer game. It's a team that I have no idea what to expect, because they play Temple, Florida Gulf Coast, Dixie State, St. Joe's, like Cal State Northridge. Just a bunch of games where I don't know where the barometer of, I don't know where the ceiling or the floor is of this team. Sure, they got Boogie Ellis coming in there, which is probably a top name in college basketball. They have Isaiah Mobley, and Godwin's been pretty well with Peterson. So they do have the cast and crew there that I'm sold in. It's just I haven't really seen them take care of business or beat someone that they should have, other than the Utah game.
Yeah, I've tried to block USC out of my mind after I bet them -6.5 against Temple, and they went up by 25 just to win the game by 5. So, yeah, fuck USC for that. And Boogie Ellis should have stayed at his other school, because that would have made his other school actually pretty good and not something that I would consider to be an absolute joke program as it sits after the last 2 weeks.
All right. Let's hear the Memphis talk. I set that one up way too well for you not to just keep going. And
yeah,
if you can't tell, Steven is not sold in Memphis.
But
not happy with Penny and Larry there. So let's hear it.
Memphis is, if this wasn't the year for Memphis, then they got bigger problems than anybody who's on the court right now. But they were throwing bags at both Jalen Duren and Amani Bates. And like, yeah, sure, I know those guys are young, but you're trying to pay to get stars to come to your team just to not have a point guard for those stars to be able to use as like a safety valve. And now guess what? You've lost 3 games in a row to average teams. You got your absolute, like, you got killed by Iowa State, and Iowa State is not. Like we just said, I don't think Iowa State's as good as their record is right now. And then you lose what is the equivalent of a bye game against a Power 5 team, because Georgia is not a good basketball program. They just aren't. And they beat Memphis straight up. You can't have that happen. And then against Ole Miss was just playing like shit themselves. They shouldn't, like, they had no business winning that game. They lost one of their better players to injury. And even with all that, Memphis couldn't shoot better than like 50% from the free throw line. They only had like 1 or 2 threes, like 37 minutes into the game. Like, this is not a program that I can trust to be good ever if they aren't good this year. And
So you want to hear the wildest part of this whole Memphis thing, and what you said is Boogie should have stayed because no one can get during the ball? If you look at his numbers for dunks and by the rim when he played the first 4 games against Group of 5 and when he played the 4 games against the Power 5, it's nuts. I'm not even trying to say that he had 2, 10, 2, and 6 points after 15, 10, 13, and 22. Like, his just pure shot attempts by the rim and his percentages dropped. He had a little bit of success against Georgia, but he's been a complete non-factor in 3 of your 4 games. And when he's won, if not probably the biggest team's part to success, because I just think Penny's still just trying to figure it out, and Larry Brown's just not having the success there, because I'm not trying to say it's too late for him in the game because he's too good of a coach. I just think this team just does not have a point guard and any continuity within this team. They almost have too many pieces. Landers Nollies isn't playing because you have Bates there. DeAndre Williams isn't giving you anything when he gets into the court. And then Quinteres is probably your only bright spot of this whole team, who you were kind of hoping. I don't know if you were hoping he wasn't going to be this big of a point, but when he's been like your rock and anchor to this team, even though he put up a big goose egg against Ole Miss, like, it's so up and down where you've gone streaking and won your first 5, then dropped 3 in a row because you thought the win against Tech was going to be like the season changer. You get the momentum builder, and then you lay these 3 fat of eggs. It's just the defense and no continuity on offense.
Yeah, when you don't have anybody to set up the offense and run like any kind of normal sets, like, you're going to get exposed by good teams, which is what's going to happen to them next week. Alabama's going to absolutely expose them at home, and so will Tennessee. I think the way they've been going, they could even lose to Murray State as well. And
I was about to say, can Murray make some noise on Friday?
Like, you got 2 easy games to end the month, Alabama State and Tulane. So that's where you got to kind of get right before January. But if they're 7-6 going into their main part of AAC play, and they lose any combination of games to, say, like an SMU or a UCF or a Cincinnati or a Wichita State or a Houston, then guess what? They might have come in ranked really high, but they're not even an at-large team. They're an NIT team.
It's just that Georgia and the Ole Miss losses. The Iowa State one, since they're currently ranked, you can kind of shrug that one off. But Penny just getting out schemed and out won in the crunch times against Crean and then Kermit Davis, who I think that might be Kermit Davis's first close win of his career. That's just kind of where you got the talent there now, Penny. Now you got to start showing it up on the court.
Yeah, and
I just don't know. That Bama game could get real ugly because I have a feeling next Tuesday, if they take care of Murray and cover that, we're going to see like Bama -3 because Memphis is home for it.
Yeah, and the thing is, the play styles are just so much different. Like, Alabama only wants to beat you with threes, and Memphis can't make a 3 to save their lives. Like, if Alabama starts to go up, it is over. Like, if Alabama goes up by like 7, I will keep live betting Alabama minus whatever the number is until it gets up to about 27.
I got to respect Memphis's defense, though, because they've kept teams to shoot under 30% from deep, but they played the 4 cakewalks and 4 legit. I think not your slander, but your very low reservations might be a little too soon, but I can definitely see where they're coming from.
They also, they also turn the ball over way too much.
Well, when you don't have a point guard, that's what's going to happen.
Exactly. So you can't make shots and you turn it over. Their defense is going to be rated really high, and they won't give up. Like a lot of points kind of in the half court. Once you turn the ball over, there's just too many possessions in a game that teams can shoot poorly and still put up a lot of points.
So which point guard, and this is how we'll wrap it up, is it Lomax that has to shoulder the blame at this point? I can't think you give it to Harris. And then who's your other point guard? Hardaway sometimes?
Yeah. I'll give the blame to Penny's son. You you're the head coach's son. You got to be the coach on the floor. You got to be the ball distributor.
He doesn't get enough
He's
minutes,
not,
man. He got 8, 14, 5, and 7 in the big time opponents. That's where I was saying I don't want to give it to my man Lomax, but I think I have to because I have to give Harris a little bit more of the credit of the doubt because Harris isn't getting the big minutes and Lomax is playing majority of the point.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody can really say they're playing the point because when Bates is on the floor, Bates has the ball and he's putting up bad shots. So even though he's like 6'9",
so you're going to Amani.
Yeah, even though he's like 6'8" or 6'9", he wants to have the ball in his hands a lot, and he has not shown himself to be a good passer on the college level, and he wants to take contested shots. He's almost like a big man where the ball just dies once it goes into him, except he's doing that from behind the three-point line. And that will never win you games. I don't care how highly you're rated coming into a season.
Yeah, I see where you're getting there with that one. I mean, he hasn't had the best start to the season. And if the ball's in your hands that much in 3 of the 4 games against Vodtech, Iowa State, and Mississippi, he had 0 assists in any of those. I think he nailed it on the head right there.
Yep.
He is 11 points, 1 assist on the season, averaging 3 turnovers. Hopefully those numbers turn around because his first 3 games looked real solid, but you can look good against Tennessee Tech and North Carolina Central. But that's going to wrap us up today. Nice little 45 to 48-minute episode of Paid for Plays, College Hoops on Tuesday. We call it our little happy hour. It's whatever you want. This Saturday, Steven, I, and the Spin Doctor will be live at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. We haven't decided which time yet. We got to probably do 10 or 10:30, honestly, to cover your Saturday full college basketball slate. So we're going to be jumping in when our college football fellas used to be doing it. You'll see us this Saturday morning. So make sure to subscribe our channel because that's the best way to get your Saturday full slate games where it could be a 6-pack a person of plays.
Yes, sir. And just to respond to Rory's last comment, no, I will not bet them more than minus 27 because once you get to that 4 touchdown number, even though it's basketball, not football, that's where I get nervous. So 26 and under or 27 and under, I'm good. Once it gets past that number, it's over for me. But not this Saturday, but next Saturday, everybody will be able to catch me live from the UConn Providence game that we touched on real quick earlier in the episode. We got anybody who's from Connecticut that's going to that game in Hartford. I'm going to the block party from 2 to 5. I'm running the bars beforehand. I'm at the game, and then I'm also running the bars afterwards. So if you want to hear me talk shit on that shitty school from Rhode Island, and anybody else in the Big East that sucks because they're not on UConn's level. And that is every team in the Big East. Just so you know, every team in the Big East is not on our level, and they all suck. That's where I'll be, and I'll just be, especially once I'm drunk, I will be throwing absolutely insanely hot takes at anybody who wants to talk.
Of course, you had to get that in there. But yes, if you want to go hear nonsense from Steven against the Providence game, he just let you know where to find them. So I don't think anyone will be coming to see you. Don't stop that from liking or subscribing our show or tuning in on Saturday's episode. But until then, we'll catch you later.
Yes.